Wild West was pretty well tamed by 1913.
I saw one just like it in Waco.
Hey, Pike, you know what I hear? I hear they got one of those things up north that can fly.
That was a balloon, you damned old fool.
No, the old man's right. They got motors, wings, go 60 miles in less than an hour.
Driven to the border by the irresistible thrust of civilization were the remnants of the breed that had made the West wild.
If they move, kill them.
The payrolls were harder to get at. The Army rode the railroad now. But there were still a few trails for the kind who'd be cold before they were tamed. They called them the Wild Bunch. Pike had been a gentleman of principle. He still had a principle or two.
We're not getting rid of anybody. We're gonna stick together just like it used to be. When you side with a man, you stay with him, and if you can't do that, you're like some animal. You're finished.
Dutch had dug for gold. He gave up digging.
How many cases did you take from the train? 16 cases of rifles. We lost one on the trail.
He stole it.
Thornton should have been a lawyer. He always argued.
Oh! Relax. It's just some champagne we ordered.
Sykes had been a gunman in his day. He still had the gun.
We gotta get him back. How?
Gorch had been trying for years. Sometimes he almost worked up to normal.
I want you to meet my fiancée.
The Wild Bunch is an epic revisionist Western movie that was released on June 19th, 1969. This movie stars William Holden and Ernest Borgnine and Robert Ryan. So it's a pretty strong cast. I'm not going to do the typical style that I normally do in my movie reviews. To those of you who are new to me, I usually do the story, action scenes, and production values, and then do my final thoughts. But I'm intentionally going to talk about them in no real order because it's the best way I can sum up my thoughts about this movie. So deal with it. I'm also going to spoil the ending. Watch the movie before this review, just to be safe. The Wild Bunch is a movie about a group of aging outlaws and is set right at the end of the Old West. It is set in 1913 to be exact. These men head to Mexico for one last job. This is not an easy movie to talk about. In fact, it's hardly an easy movie to watch. But it did give me an experience that I'll never forget. Though, I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. I will say the cinematography and editing are fucking astounding. The editing especially paves the way for fucking amazing artistic decisions. There are a lot of quick cuts and slow-mo shots, which makes for a very unique style. The movie also has good writing. There are some good quotes here and there, but by far the scene when Pike and Dutch talk to each other before going to bed is the most well-written in the entire movie. It also shows the loyalty these men have to each other and how loyal they are. but at the same time, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between them and the brutal Mexican army. I guess this kind of double-edged sword leads me to my next point. While I do think the editing has a style that enhances the movie, it can also be pretty detrimental to it as well. What I mean is, there are these fucking random shots that are honestly kind of baffling. Sure, some of them have some subtext, particularly the insect shots. But there are also these random shots of infants that really don't add that much to the movie. Sure, the movie is 2 hours and 25 minutes, but there are movies that are just as long and even longer that don't fill up the runtime with shots like this. But the worst one is a close-up of a mother letting her child drink. It is uncensored and unnecessary. Let's really ask ourselves, what the hell is the point of that shot? Let me make myself clear. I'm all for subtext in a movie, and I am against any form of censorship. I believe you as a filmmaker can show me whatever you want to. But just don't expect me to like everything you show me, or even that all viewers will want to watch your movie again. I reckon this movie also has some clever use of flashbacks, though. It has the fucking perfect transition for them, each of them, and they are interesting. They also don't go on for too long. But yeah, it's hard to root for anyone really in this movie. Not even Thornton is really a good character. He is stern and just seems to only be after the outlaws because it's his job as a bounty hunter to do so. But before we get to the apex of my thoughts, I want to mention probably my favorite scene in the movie, in terms of how well made it is. It is the scene where a couple of outlaws with two prostitutes go into a room with wine barrels. One of them shoots one of the wine barrels and everyone swims in the wine barrel. This scene is simply fucking glorious. It has memorable visuals and some neat slow-mo, and is intercut with Pike and Dutch and another guy naked in the showers. It is even titillating with nudity on the prostitutes shown. This is one of the times the editing really works to its advantage. I hope you enjoyed that because this is where my praise of the movie kind of ends. This movie is really dark. Some might say too dark. I would say too dark. Don't get me wrong, I do like westerns with a darker tinge, like A Fistful of Dollars, Sabata, and Heaven's Gate, but fuck, The Wild Bunch makes those movies look like feel-good movies. To be fair, most of the really dark stuff happens toward the end, but it is definitely foreshadowed in the beginning. The Mexicans practically deceive the outlaws into one unsick goddamn game they play and kidnap their friend. At this point, the outlaws are really thinking they should not have trusted the Mexicans. This leads us to the famous final action scene. While the previous action scenes are, to be honest, not that good, this action scene is pretty fucking wild. No pun intended. Lots of gunshots and blood. Honestly, I'm not sure if it's even tame by today's standards. There's like nymphomaniac levels of blood and gore. The only real issue that I have with it is that there's not much variety in the scene. Every time someone gets shot, blood comes out. And there's no other means of attack other than dynamite throwing, but even that feels like an afterthought. But who wins the battle? The answer is nobody. Yeah, they all kill themselves. Thornton arrives to see that the job that he was assigned to do has already been done for him. No one is left to praise the efforts of Pike and Dutch, and the other men. And Thornton is the most unlikely to praise their efforts. This is the first movie I've seen where I can definitively say it subscribes to the philosophy of nihilism. It pretty much says all the pleasure and the friendship and the glory of the West is all meaningless in the end. I personally do not subscribe to the philosophy of nihilism, so I can only really see the death of the Old West solidifying the death of the traditional Western movies symbolically as pretty soul-sucking. But time only moves in one direction, I guess. The Wild Bunch is a movie that leaves me with a taste that I can't get rid of when I think about it. I can appreciate some of the artistic decisions made in this movie and the unrestrained style and the clear passion that went into it. Not to mention the damn good writing. But what keeps this from being one of my favorite Western movies is the fact that the movie left me feeling uncomfortable, distressed, and empty after watching it. But maybe that was the whole point. But is it a good point to have? The Wild Bunch is definitely an unforgettable experience and definitely a must-see. But if you never want to watch it again, I can completely understand. This is not me trying to be a sheltering bastard. This is me telling you to watch at your own risk. But hey, maybe you'll enjoy it more than I did. I give The Wild Bunch 3 out of 5 stars with the title of Worth Watching. But that's mainly for the passion and the unique style that is present in it. Anyway, I'm Spike Robot. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel, and see you next time. Support our troops.